Welcome to the Everything Made Beautiful podcast with Shannon Scott, where we talk about life's seasons, joyful, challenging, and everything in between, and how God is working in all of them. Join us each week for conversations filled with hope, truth, and the encouragement that He is always making everything beautiful. This podcast is sponsored by QAVA, helping you take your next step in faith through digital resources that deepen discipleship. Check them out at QAVA, QAVA.tv. And now, on with the show.
Hey there, welcome back, friends, to the Everything Made Beautiful podcast. Today's conversation is a special one. I'm joined by David Nasser, someone whose life and ministry have impacted thousands, including mine, over the last 30 years. David's story is one marked by both grief and glory, from fleeing Iran as a child to coming to faith as a young adult to pastoring some of the largest ministry platforms in the world. Most recently, David and I worked together on the From Grief to Glory series with QAVA, and today we'll talk about the heart behind it, why walking slowly through Holy Week matters, and how grief and glory aren't opposites, but often companions. Whether you're familiar with David's story or hearing it for the first time, I know you'll be encouraged and challenged today. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into this conversation with David Nasser.
Well, David Nasser, this has been a long time coming. I'm pumped about it. Thank you for being on the Everything Made Beautiful podcast.
Man, the one, the only Shannon Scott, my wife's absolute favorite preacher. If she only looked at me the way she looks at you when you're preaching, our marriage would be so much stronger.
She is so kind. And, I did a whole professional bio for you before we started, which is super impressive. But I have to say, we have known each other for, I think it's the better part of 30 years.
30 years, yeah.
So you were the guy I heard about nonstop from my husband as his favorite pastor, preacher, teacher, speaker to tour with and play for and do camps with. And all I heard was Nasser. And then I met you and I understood why. And those were some fun years. And then you guys did the student life tour together one year, and at the Birmingham tour stop, I was the girlfriend who came to visit her man on the road. And little did I know that you and Jennifer had cooked up an entire engagement scenario for me and Jeff.
Yeah.
So we went to your dad's restaurant, a French restaurant, if I'm not mistaken, with 7 courses. And the restaurant was empty except for rose petals and candles and me and my soon-to-be fiance, all arranged by you, which was so sweet, and I will never forget it.
That's the amazing Jeffrey B. Scott.
Yes, it is.
You know what I mean? So that was all him.
And then you were in our wedding. He sang in your wedding. Like we've had a lot of life, and it's really sweet that it's now reconverging again in this season.
Yeah, it really is. I love your family and just have so much respect and love for Jeff. My first ever memory of Jeff was him singing I Will Exalt Your Name.
Yeah.
And a couple other songs in the Passion Movement. And I just remember thinking, man, God has his hand on this guy. And we became friends. Like you said, he sang at my wedding. And then when you came into town, when you came into his life, it went all caps. And it's just been amazing to see the trajectory of your ministry and your life. And I celebrate you. Like you guys God's used you in such amazing ways. And I mean it when I say, as just a Bible teacher, my wife always says, like, Shannon Scott has such a gift of lowering the cookies, meaning like amazing theology, not sugaring it down, not watering it down, but always making it so accessible, easy to understand to people. And so, I'm grateful for you both.
Well, it was a sweet, I specifically remember once we moved to Nashville, it was a Sunday morning and we were sitting on the front row. I think I was hosting or something. And Darren said, Yeah, David Nasser is preaching this morning. Do you know him? And I said, do I know him?
I got
And
secrets.
so, yes, it was really fun to get to now re-intersect in
Yeah.
Nashville. And we'll talk a little bit about a project we got to do together just recently. But you have such a compelling and transformational faith story. So, for people who maybe have even heard you preach at church or those kinds of things, but don't know the full breadth of your story, I'd love for you just to take a few minutes and read everybody in, because it gives such context to why you're so passionate about the gospel and about its impact for people. So, just take us down the road a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was born in the country of Iran. And in 1979, the Iranian Revolution happened. And when that happened, we saw literally tens of thousands of Iranians massacred and killed in what I call religion gone wrong. The Ayatollah Khomeini and his religious zealots we had a revolution, took over the government. And at that time, Shannon, my dad was high ranked in the military in Iran. And when the revolution happened and they were replacing everybody who was anybody with somebody new, they were not doing it through regular governance or a vote. I mean, it was a takeover. And so they were killing all of these people. And I remember those days. I remember as a kid, literally a soldier coming to our school, our military school. I was just a little kid. I was, 8 years old, and calling my name out in front of the entire student body. And as I came to the front, putting a gun at my forehead and telling me that he was called by his superiors to come and take my life because of who my dad was. And that afternoon or that morning, the soldier didn't kill me, obviously. And I remember my parents just putting on front burner this idea that, like, we've got to get out of here as fast as we can. And so I have other memories as well. I remember soldiers dragging my father out of our home when they came to take him. And my mom hanging onto the leg of one of the soldiers. And she kept saying, just kill him quickly, just kill him quickly. My first
Wow.
memory ever of prayer was when my mom got us together after they took my dad out of our home and said, let's just pray. And she just kept saying, just let him die quickly. Let him die quickly. And at the end of the prayer, I asked her, what do you mean? And why are we saying that? And she said, well, your dad's best friend the day before was tortured slowly in where they're taking your dad. And so we just need to pray that he's spared a slow, torturous death and like killed quickly. And so I say all that to say, growing up in a Shiite Muslim heritage and then experiencing, like, easily called the trauma of religion takeover in my
Yeah.
country, the earliest memories I have of God are, I don't know what we've done, but apparently God has sent a soldier to try to kill me at school. And people under his name are trying to take my father's life. And that day, my dad wasn't killed. He came home, and that's when we planned our escape. And in my mind, Shannon, we were escaping from God. We
Yeah.
weren't escaping, government. We were escaping from a religious leader who represented God to me. And so we did. We escaped from Iran, and we came to the United States. We were stuck actually in Europe for 9 months because when we escaped, the Iranian Revolution was in the kind of the height of it, and that's when 54 Americans from the American embassy in Iran were held hostage. And so people were watching on TV how Iranians are burning the American flag, calling America the great Satan, how they've got these hostages. And so can you imagine, like, we were from the wrong place at the wrong time. And we were
Yeah.
stuck in Europe trying to make it here. The doors just wouldn't open until actually one day my mom got us together and said, we want to go to America. We ought to pray to America's God. She showed us a picture of a white, handsome, kind of a Duck Dynasty looking fella. She was like, we want to go to America. This is Jesus. He's American. Let's ask him to let us into his country. And I'm so glad God is bigger than bad geography / theology,
Right.
because we mentioned Jesus in a prayer. And a week later, the doors we couldn't open for ourselves, the Lord opened for us. And so I remember coming to America thinking, I hate religion because I saw it destroy my country. But hey, Jesus, thanks for letting us into your country. And we came to America and physically things got better, but emotionally, I was just this outcasted fish out of water, right? This kid that just didn't blend in. And for years and years, that was me until the day my freshman year in high school was about to start, where my dad, in an attempt to try to fix it, in an attempt to help me not feel like a fish out of water, gave me this makeover. Like he took me to the mall, and I got new clothes, new haircut, new shoes, new everything. And I have a real affinity for clothes and stuff, and my counselor says it's rooted out of that. But anyway, so I remember like those days where like I went from, I call it geek to chic, you know, and so I found friendship based on like learning how to play my high school years. I had the
Yeah.
right clothes on. I learned how to dump the right girl right before she could dump me. How to be cold to people, to be perceived as cool to people. And
Yeah.
on paper, it seemed like things had flipped, like things were better. But I went from a really lonely, insecure, kid to all of a sudden a really popular, insecure kid who replaced one idol for another,
Yeah.
one empty well to try to find nourishment out of with another. And it's so true where it says in the Bible, what good is it for a man to gain the whole world but to forfeit his soul? And that was my story.
Yeah.
So right after high school, I graduated from high school, popular but just emotionally bankrupt. And a buddy of mine invited me to church. And long story short, I went to church for the first time to be social. And this youth group, I call it youth group, they were really a youth ministry. They saw me coming. And man, it was like the 1040 window had come to them. They didn't need a passport, man. I'd go. So they came to my house 8 Monday nights in a row and shared the gospel with me. And for 8 weeks in a row, I went to their church because I felt like there was something about them that was really magnetic. Love is kindness is such a superpower,
Yeah.
And 8 weeks in, one night I heard the gospel, and that's when I became a Christian and gave my life to the Lord. And I just remember struggling so much because I hated religion, and I would even say to these Christians when they'd come to my house, Shannon, like, I don't want religion. I hate it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of quasi-Muslim by heritage, but I'm not even a good one, and they would say, no, 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 we hate religion too. I remember actually one of the first theology lessons or Bible lessons they ever taught me that really stuck to me was they said, hey, you do know, like, the very people that nailed Jesus to the cross were the religious people.
Yeah.
Which we can get into in just a minute as we talk about Holy
Yeah.
Week. But I didn't know that. I was like, really? They're like, yo, yeah, just so you understand. You hate religion. We hate religion. You don't want religion. We don't want religion for us or for you. And they kept saying, no, what we want for you is redemption. And I didn't understand it. We
Yeah.
want grace. We don't want, we don't want you to like clean up your act. We want you to give up your life. And so I was 18 and 2 months old when the Lord saved me. And, God is so good. I became a Christian, and my parents were never devout as Muslims until the night I became a Christian. Then all of a sudden they were like, "What are Muslims?" I was like, "We are," and I got kicked out of the house for becoming a believer, and it was so good for me to learn. Like, it doesn't mean life gets easy. This isn't health
Yeah.
and wealth, prosperity. This is the gospel. It will cost you your life, and it was the best thing that ever happened. Like, I moved in with 6 guys that lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. And we ate ramen noodles every day, and the Lord just blessed, man. And I grew in my faith. And within a couple of years, I saw my whole family come to know the Lord as well.
That is so. Most people, I would venture to say, most people listening or watching right now cannot relate to having accepted Christ and been immediately ostracized from their family of origin in
Yeah,
such a dramatic way. And I think we forget because oftentimes, if we're honest in America, the gospel does not cost us what it costs so
right,
many in so
right.
many parts of the world. And it's a good reminder, it's a poignant reminder to me that this experience of this health, wealth, prosperity, all this lack of discomfort that we often have in America is not the predominant experience of people all over the world who are embracing the gospel. And
Right.
so thank you for just sharing your story. I'm so grateful for God's mercy on your whole family. Like that has to be such a sweet thing to watch over the years. Cause I know it wasn't overnight. I know that it was a process, but, did you sense after you were saved that ministry would be part of your story? Like how soon after 18 and 2 months did you realize, oh, I'm called to preach the gospel?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question. I, I just remember this emotion. I remember the night I became a Christian, um, thinking to myself, "Oh my gosh, this is too good to keep to myself." Like the
Mm,
night I became a believer, I just remember it almost felt like I had found the cure of everything that's broken with me and my friends.
yeah,
And we have been chasing after the wind. Like we have been smoking weed and getting wasted and partying and all, like again, a
yeah,
bonfire of vanities. It's
yeah,
Ecclesiastes, it's like
yeah,
under the
yep,
sun, I chased after all these things that were meaningless. And then you find over the sun is the one thing that's actually meaningful. And
yeah,
so I remember, Shannon, like giving my life to Christ and instantly feeling this is too good to keep. I've got to go tell people about it. And
mhm,
nobody was handing me a microphone to go and preach somewhere. Nobody was like, "Hey, would you like to go to Mesa, Arizona and shoot videos
mhm,
together for like we're about to talk about?"
yeah,
Like none of that was happening. I would go to Kentucky Fried Chicken. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
and
yeah,
buy and I have a revival. Like I would literally stand in line and at Kentucky Fried Chicken and wait on somebody who had change and they were counting for like a see that they could afford like a 3-piece meal instead of a 2-piece meal. And I tap them on the
yeah,
shoulder and say, "Hey, I'll buy you the 4-piece meal and the biscuit and a pecan pie if I can, while you're eating." I would say, like, if I can talk to you about a speech that I wrote. And the guy would be like, "Okay," so I would pay somebody
yeah,
$6 to sit down and share the gospel with them. And I know this sounds old school, but like we would go soul winning. Like we would go out on the street, downtown, South Side, Birmingham, and just share the gospel with people. And I would be at the gas station and I would like see someone and like I would talk to them about the Lord. And I say that to say, the same thing I'm doing today, I was doing back then.
yeah,
Now, the audience in front of me feels a little different,
yeah,
in one sense. But also, like the other day, I shared the gospel. I was sitting on a plane, heading back from an event, and the lady beside me, she actually started the conversation. She said, "Oh, I see you follow a lot of religious people," so which tells me she was looking at me like scroll up on my
yeah,
Instagram. She goes, "I see you follow a lot of religious people." And I was like, "Oh yeah." I said, and so then we start, and then the next thing you know, I'm like, I'm sharing the gospel with her. So I say that to
yeah,
say that's why a lot of my messages when I do preach feel very much like I feel like I'm drinking coffee with this guy because
mhm,
I cut my teeth calling the ministry and
yeah,
like I'm just going to share the gospel with whoever God has in front of me. And there have been seasons when it's just one individual at a Kentucky Fried Chicken, and there's seasons where it's like a, an audience, with a countryman attached to my face, and
yeah,
I'm preaching
yeah,
a message for 30 minutes. But whatever the way is, the truth and the life of it stays the same, right? And
yeah,
so when you ask me like when did you know you were called to ministry, I never had like a moment where
yeah,
like I sensed a prompting of like a call to ministry. For all I know, I might get to heaven and God will go. I meant for you to be a florist. Well, hopefully not a florist, but what I'm saying? Like, I might go to heaven, but I actually think, like, for me, I've always been a bit of an interrupter, kind of that's my personality. And I've always been a bit of like, I would have made a good lawyer, my friends. Like, I always argued my way in and out of things and stuff like that. So, being quite persuasive or salesman like, which the biblical word for it is prophetic, like
mhm,
proclaiming. It's kind of my personality and my hardwire. And I also like when I love something, I want everybody to try it. You
Yeah.
know, we just spent, with your team and my wife and I, we spent a week together in Arizona, and I'm texting you like, you got to try this restaurant.
Right.
I become an evangelist for anything I believe in.
Yeah,
And so
that's good.
you don't have to help you promote something. If I think your burger is amazing, I'm gonna tell everybody about your burger.
Yeah.
And so I say that to say, like, what is better to tell people about
Yeah.
than the same gospel that set me free? And
Yeah.
so when you ask me about a calling, I just remember giving my life to Christ and going, I just got to go tell people. And then the Lord has like somehow navigated through that. Like a couple of books were written that nobody bought, and sermons,
That's not true.
sermons,
I did.
sermons were
I
preached,
did.
and these kind of things. Yeah, it's you and my mom. Thank you. But I say all that to say, like, for me, there hasn't been this distinct like calling. Now, some people get that;
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
get a Damascus Road. I didn't. I just feel like I got saved, and I wanted to save others.
The thing I love about your story is you were doing what God had hardwired you to do, and it has turned out that that has been the calling on your life and how
Yeah,
you've, as Andy Stanley would say, eaten and live indoors. But anybody doing what God has hardwired them to do and being willing to share the gospel doing it is really the magic of that, not waiting for some like, am I called into ministry?
yeah,
I'm not sure there's ministry apart from sharing the gospel. So I
yeah.
appreciate that about your story. And you have done a lot in the last 3 decades that I've known
Yeah.
you. But I'd love to talk about one significant season in your life, if that's okay with you. Were you going to say something?
Can I just,
Yep.
since I normally don't get to talk about this on podcasts, but can I just
Yeah.
say, like, on the note prior, like, before we leave it, like, I I was just the other day thinking through the Apostle Paul, like, and you see him, first time we see him in scripture, he's at the Lion's Gate, an accomplice to Stephen's martyrdom.
Hmm.
Then he's kind of like, that's not enough. Like he's literally on on the Damascus Road to take out the people of the way. The way is Jesus, the way, the life, the
Hmm.
truth. I mean, the way, the truth, and the life. And then God and him have this encounter. Like there's this moment of salvation for him. And if a couple of days he's blinded, he gets out of bed. And I love this is like a flyby passage. Like I'm not talking about the Apostle Paul, most quoted
Yeah.
man, wrote a quarter of the New Testament. Like I'm not talking about like this great theologian who wrote like the Declaration of Dependence called Ephesians two
Yeah.
1 through 10, or robust theology like Romans. I'm talking about like Paul just became a Christian. He
Yeah.
walks into like 3-4 days into his faith. He walks into the the place where everybody knew him as a religious leader, as like, and it says he caused havoc.
Mm.
So I just like it. It's like Paul's been caught. First time we see him, he's causing havoc. Then God saves him, and he starts causing havoc. He just switched teams. He used to
Yeah.
be
It's good.
causing havoc against, and I've always kind of been a havoc guy.
Yeah.
I've always caused havoc. Like when I didn't know the Lord, it wasn't just me. I led people away from the Lord. I was trying to persuade everybody, like every
Mm.
girl to do inappropriate things. Every guy to like, let's not just have one beer. Let's have 50. Let's not just like
Yeah.
drink this beer. Let's not just throw a party. Let's throw a massive party. Everything for me has always been like I go all in, and
Yeah.
so I think the takeaway for someone listening is like some people they're just hardwired by God to be deep wells of reflection. Some people are hardwired by God to be loud,
Yeah.
and some
Yeah.
people are hardwired by God to be more, intellectual, more musical, or whatever. And discovering your calling is there's a reason God made me weird and unique the way He made me. Now, how do I leverage that, whatever it might
Yeah.
be, to let people know about Him? And for me, it turned into a vocation, but bigger than that the calling is for anyone listening, how do I leverage my life and my gift set, you know, that's very unique than anybody else to advance the kingdom, you
Yeah.
know? And, and,
Yeah.
and once people figure that out, you know, then you're good at money, you become Dave Ramsey.
Yep.
You're good at
Yep.
music, you become Jeffrey B. Scott. You know,
Yeah.
you're incredible persuader, you become Shannon. You know, Scott. Like you proclaim. You know, and you're a great writer. You know, and
Mm.
so like I think God can. Someone listening, it's just like, okay, what is the intersection between my passion and my gifting?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
That's the
good.
connect. That's the location of my calling. You know.
Yeah. That's so good. Thank you for saying that, because I know that sometimes people feel discouraged if they
Mm.
don't have an overtly, what we might consider spiritual calling on their life. Maybe they're like, I'm a phenomenal football player or track athlete, and I really want that to be okay as a passionate believer in Jesus. And it is.
Yeah.
So thank you for saying that. That's such good pastoral wisdom. Um, Now, you would not describe what I'm about to describe the way I'm going to describe it, because you're super humble, but you have, for a number of years prior to this, you pastored the world's largest collegiate ministry at
Yeah.
Liberty, and had such great impact there, and that legacy is ongoing. What was that season like for you? I mean, you talk about as an evangelist having
Yeah.
a harvest there, a ripe harvest. What did you learn specifically about young adults and about, the next generation in that season?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me just say it was the largest when I found it already, so I didn't take it to that number. It also is. It's just it was the largest Christian university, in the
Yeah.
world, and they bring everyone together, several times a week, and so in
Yeah.
that numerically, that's why it was the largest. But that said, it was an incredible almost 8 years of Jennifer and I's life, and we went for the students. We didn't go for. As a matter of fact, I remember flying in there, Shannon, and spending some time with some of the leadership, and it was great. I was very impressed with them and their heart for the Lord, and the buildings were impressive, and like Liberty University is an impressive place to see with your
Yeah.
eyes. But I didn't sense like a tug of like, this is the place. We loved where we were. We were in Birmingham. We were at a church plant in the inner city. Our kids loved their school. We loved their staff. I was like, ride or die. I'm staying in Birmingham. But we had this thing called the Yes on a Table. So we went just to see what God was doing and if He was prompting. But then they had one last meeting the day we were spending a couple hours at Liberty, and it was with some students. And listening to the students and their hunger for God and their
Yeah.
desire to grow during their collegiate years for the kingdom and to discover their true calling, not their profession, but their calling that we were talking about,
Yeah.
really kind of got our heartbeats fast. And so I say that to say we went for the students. We stayed for the students. There were years where, like any other thing, there were some tough years, and those are the years where we have to remind ourselves, like, now, why did we come? We came for the students. We're hanging out for them.
Yeah.
And then even as
Yeah.
we left to be a model to the students, I think, of like, if God calls you to go, I can't tell you always have a yes on the table and not, what the two things I would say I learned from that season more than anything else. When it comes to actual leadership, I learned the power of surrounding yourself with people that are better than you at what they
Mm,
do.
mm,
And that's how we were able to be successful. The Lord just gave us an incredible team of really able people. Like I'm kind of weirdly really good at a few things and then it sharply drops off. But it takes a village of people to accomplish like the assignment that God had for
yeah.
us. And it took people that were just so good at what they did, so much better than me at shepherding, so much better than me at administrative work and stuff. And so the biggest takeaway over and over again was like, it just took every single person. And I'm so grateful that God brought people into my life that were so good at what they did.
Yeah.
And my job was just to get out of their way, and let them do. So that was on the leadership side. When it came to the students, what I learned was that they, and I don't think it's any different. I don't think there was a moment where this wasn't true. I think 18 to 24-year-olds, and they've always been this way. Now, recently we've seen an upsurge where we're saying, oh, since Asbury and some other things, is there a remnant of awakening and
Yeah.
revival? And sure, there can be moments, but in the long span of things, 18 to 24-year-olds come to God at that moment of discovery, where this is the first time typically for a college student where they're having to make their own decisions. There's no more helicopter mom, you know, putting, food in front of them, and high school principal. Like 18 to 24-year-olds are in that season of discovery, and they really are asking God, how do I serve you best?
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment when they're porous, you get them from 18. This is an assembly line there. In that moment where like you get them from 18 to 22, 23, 24, they are so available to the Lord. And I think our Mormon friends have done a really good job of like putting them on a bike and making them go knock on doors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though we don't believe in the same message, like the methodology of like you get an 18-year-old who's available, not tied down, is moldable, is shapeable, and be a good steward of that season. And so what I learned was like that's the years where you can really help them understand the missional life. Like this is the moment to go ahead and say, I'm going to go be a teacher in Mississippi.
Yeah.
Because they need godly teachers in Mississippi. I'm
That's good.
gonna go be a doctor in Taiwan, because they're gonna actually pay me to be a missionary in Taiwan. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go be a lawyer in Dubai because they need like they're offering me a six-figure salary to actually go on mission in Dubai. And
Yeah.
so like this idea of like these are the years where you actually a lot of decisions haven't been made yet for you. You can make them. So why don't you just like bring your life before God and take them and say offer yourself before Him and just say like more than ever, God, I'm available to whatever you have for me. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so that was the biggest takeaway. Like you get somebody from 18 to 24 and they're in that moment. So if you can sit there in those moments and just help them discover their identity in Christ and then discover their calling for Christ,
Yeah.
then I think you've done them well, you know?
Well, I will say those students are very blessed to have had you, many of them for their
Yeah.
entire collegiate career as their campus pastor, in effect. And so
Yeah.
I also love what you said about leadership. And I have seen you model this, but it takes a incredibly confident, competent leader to say, let me get people around me who are better than I am at various things.
Hmm.
And I think you have modeled that so well over the years, but that's such a good reminder to all of
Yeah.
us in any aspect of leadership that it doesn't make us smaller to get people around us who are better than us at things. So that was really profound to me. Okay, so recently, as in the last 2 weeks, we got to go to Arizona. Jennifer got to go. We took the QAVA team and we went to Arizona for a project,
So
and it was
fun.
so
Yeah.
fun. And so I called you up one day and I was like, hey, I have a weird question. And it's something that we had not yet attempted with QAVA, but I just had an idea that it would be a really cool thing. And we wanted to take people on a journey through Holy Week. And we wanted to find a place in the States that would kind of give us that illusion of some of that biblical landscape and those gorgeous mountain ranges and things. And Arizona delivers in that aspect. But I'm just curious, what drew you to this in the first place? Of like, yeah, let's slow down and go on a journey through Holy Week.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the gracious invite came from you, a person that we trust and we've done ministry with for a long time. To complement that, I mean, you're now sitting in a seat of leadership with QAVA, an organization that's fast becoming known as like two things. Like we are stubbornly, violently guarding good theology. Like we won't compromise on that. And then at the same time, we want to tell the story of the biblical stories with with aesthetic beauty and with excellence. And so to be invited into that space and be given permission was a quick yes for us. Like, how do we go together and in a place that's iconically known for sunrises and sunsets, and to look at the sunrise, to sunset, to sunrise of Holy Week. So I thought it was not just aesthetically beautiful, but symbolically appropriate. And then the content, man, everyone knows, two events in the most important week in the history of the world. Everyone has heard, even if you don't share our faith, about Good Friday and about Resurrection Sunday. But leading up to that, if you back up a little bit and think about the full bookends of Palm Sunday all the way to Resurrection Sunday, you see the dovetail, the interlocking of the progression of a week that speaks incredible volume about the life and the journey of Jesus and then his disciples and then us, his now disciples. And so when you said, would you want to come and, do these devotions? I was like, I've always wanted to tell the story of Holy Week. And now I get to do it with QAVA, a group of people who are so good at telling story at such a high level of excellence. And so I was like, man, this is going to be amazing, So yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, it's going to be so good. What I'm wondering, did anything surprise you or kind of hit you in a new way as you were just sitting with the content and studying it? I mean, you've taught it before, you know all the events of Holy Week, but I know you find, like I do, it doesn't matter how familiar we are with passages of scripture. If we're faithful to dig, there's always more there. So was there anything as you sat in preparation with these details that hit you differently or just hit you afresh about that week of the life of Jesus?
Honestly, so much. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. You're asking me, like, was there one? But I think about Palm Sunday, and as I was
Yeah.
preparing my heart and my mind, like, hey, like, what is the content here that we want to like deliver in a 7 minute, 5 to 7 minute video for people?
Yeah.
There were things nuances in the story that I've never thought about before, and just Jesus, just the way that Jesus carries himself, the decision, donkey instead of stallion. Those tiny little things that are just such like basic everyday principles of,
Yeah.
or my own convictions on Palm Sunday of so often, so easily putting palm branches down and putting coats down and making a big ruckus of how much I love Jesus. But then, like, when it really comes to a difficult moment, like, were those just words or were they
Yeah.
really words that had deep meaning? And then you go the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day, and then the next. I'm just telling you, like Silent Saturday, for example, for me, just preparing for it and thinking back at these seasons of waiting,
Yeah.
were just really profound for me in preparation for this. My
Yeah.
just on Silent Saturday when we were shooting our video, my dad had passed away the Saturday
Mhm.
before.
Mhm.
And I woke up that morning and I was thinking about just the content that we were preparing to
Mhm.
deliver together about Silent Saturday and how God is always working in the waiting, that God has not abandoned us if we're kind of at a pause. And I thought about the months and months that we waited on the Lord to send my father home. And there's that tension of like, you don't want to see your daddy go, but at the same time he's in a bed and he's not communicating, and you're like, Lord, he might be struggling. God, like,
Yeah.
let him, he's ready. God, he knows you, let him go. And in that waiting, like, maybe somebody's watching this and you know what it's like to sit beside somebody that you love and just going, Lord, like, send them home. Send them home.
Yeah.
And in that waiting, God is doing a refiner's work. In that waiting,
Yeah.
God is doing something bigger, maybe in the life of the nurses around you. We don't always see it. But even in that moment, like, it just meant something to me that it's never meant to me. And I have probably preached Silent Saturday 50 times. I've preached Good Friday
Right.
100 times. I've preached Resurrection Sunday, every preacher, like, over and over
Yeah.
and over again. But coming back to it this time for me and teaching it has once again brought so much new light and so much new, we call it color, like so much more just nuance and discovery and more appreciation.
Yeah.
It was kind of like we were having church out in the middle of a desert together. We'd
Yeah.
go out there to
It
shoot
really
these
was.
videos, and by
Yeah.
the way, like I would be on take 11. They'd be like, "Hold, airplane coming by," and then I'd go back and
Totally.
revisit it again, and just like it felt like repetitive meditative work for me to be
It's good.
sitting in like what was happening on the story of the withering fig tree on that Tuesday 2000 years ago. So I say
Yeah.
all that to say there was so much of it, but pick a day and I'll just tell you what
Yeah.
it meant at a new level for me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if was it the same
Yeah.
for you?
It was. I mean, the way we did this was I took a first pass at scripts, and then you
Oh
took a
yeah.
second pass at scripts, and then I took a third pass, and so it really felt like we crafted it. And the more I sat in it, the more profoundly grateful I was for everything that led up to the parts we celebrate on Sunday.
Yeah.
And we called this From Grief to Glory intentionally. And I think it's important for us as believers not to just rush to Easter and rush past Good Friday, but frankly, not rush past that entire week in Jesus' life, because every day and the things he was engaged in and what mattered to him on each day is profound for each of us today.
Yeah.
And so what would you say to people who may be new to intentionally slowing down Holy Week? Why do you think it's important to consider both the grief and the glory of that whole week leading up to Easter?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think so often, sadly, we end up celebrating the holy roar of Easter without all the holy whispers and all the
Yeah.
brokenness, the holy brokenness, and the holy, like the less loud moments of a holy week, and we rob ourselves. And what we wanted to do with this was to say every part of this week has applicational truth for our life,
Yeah.
and by the way, it will not take away from Holy Sunday, Holy Roar Sunday. Like the way you really prepare to maximize all that it means for you is to back up and say there's a reason why God progressively takes like himself and his disciples through the process of a week, a journey
Yeah.
that has in it everything from intimate beauty to scandalous betrayal to religious confrontation to just a prayer and rest, and like there's just not a whole lot that's not in that week.
Right.
And I think also there are different years of my life where coming into Easter, I've been some years in a real valley of my life
Mm.
needing Easter. And some years in a real mountaintop of my life needing Easter. Some years I'm getting ready to get married and I'm needing Easter. Some years I'm mourning the death of my father and I need Easter.
Mhm.
And what Holy Week does as a whole week is it allows you to understand the different ways that the Holy Spirit ministers to us through resurrection power.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. And in the Easter Sunday video, I remember specifically you saying, we are resurrection people
Mm,
today. Resurrection isn't something we celebrate that happened back then. It is also what we live out every single day of our lives. I'd love you just to talk for a minute around that.
yeah, I can't emphasize enough how important it has been in my own walk with God to wake up every day, not just Easter Sunday, not just even Holy Week, but every day of my life, and recognize that the Holy Spirit has given me resurrection power, not my own power, because man, we're going to fail if it's in my own power, but resurrection power in every facet of my life. And so, both in the saving work, like the tomb is empty, Christ is risen, and because of that, I can find salvation. not just in saving work, but in sustaining work. So I have resurrection power today to walk into when it comes to my marriage. If my marriage feels like it's in a silent Saturday or a confronting Tuesday, I can have resurrection power right now in my marriage. If my relationship with my kids is weird, or if I'm just having a real struggle with my boss at work, there's not a facet of my life where resurrection power can't be afforded. And so I don't have to walk by my might, you know?
Yeah.
And again, it's not just saving grace, but saving power, but sustaining power. And that's the resurrection power that God gives us every single day. So we don't have to plug in and plug out. Like, we stay plugged in.
Yeah. That's so good. What are you personally praying that people will experience as they engage with this series? Whether it be every morning when they wake up or at night before they go to bed, or even if they sit down and binge the whole thing, maybe before Easter Sunday, what is your prayer for people as they engage with Holy Week?
Yeah, I think these 8 moments, these 8 videos, are about 5 to 10 minutes long on purpose. They're not supposed to be everything that you do as far as your devotion is concerned. But I think it's a way for us to collectively, all of us who are going to join this 1 week journey together, to collectively step in to Holy Week and say, God, prepare my heart. And so every day there is a bit of a scripture reading that we do. And then there's about a 5 minute teaching about, that particular day. And then we turn it towards the person who's watching and going, now that's what happened then. How does this apply to my life today?
Yeah.
How is this vital? How is this about me in the trenches of this particular Tuesday right now? And so what we want people to do is just to come available before the Lord and to say, I'm gonna watch this, whether it's with my iPhone, whether it's on, just putting it on my TV, whether it's my laptop open. I'm gonna watch this for about 5 to 7 minutes. And then hopefully I'm gonna shut the device down and just spend a few minutes with God and just say, like, Lord, what are you saying to me? What did you just say to me? And there's something really both personal and corporate about this, that all over the world, Christians from all these different denominations and all these different paths and people are going to watch the same and be literally on the same page on the same day, having the same questions posed to them, the same challenges, the same encouragements brought before them. And so how beautiful would it be for someone joining us to say, all right, Kava is like bringing believers from all over the world together to literally every single day commit to say, for about 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to watch something. And then the Holy Spirit's going to say something very different to me than he does to my wife if we're both watching the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's how God works so often. And there's beauty in the sense that we're going to get to all do this together. And here's the thing. Shannon Scott's going to come into this week needing something very different than David Nasser.
Yeah.
But the Lord is going to give from the same table for all of us specifically something. And I can't wait to hear, like, you're going to listen to the Thursday devotional and get something very different from it, from the moment that you're in, than I am. But I can't wait for us to, like, even talk about this. My encouragement would be for families to commit to watch it together and maybe even have dialogue afterwards.
Yeah.
So whether for me in the rhythm of my life, that's typically in the morning. My schedule allows me to begin my day with this video and to watch it and then spend some time. But some people can end their day with it, or they can do it on their drive to work. The main thing is wherever you can find the right margin to give it proper attention. Man, come before God and just say, I'm available.
Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough for being part of this project. We're really excited about it, and not just because it'll be cool or it'll look great or it's great content, but because the Word of God is living and active, and we're excited for people to dive in and maybe experience the season of Easter in a more profound way than they have before. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I do want to ask you, as we end, the question that I ask all my guests, because this podcast is called Everything Made Beautiful, because we do believe what scripture says, that God is making everything beautiful in its time, and that he is in a constant restoration and redemption process. And so we just like to consider beautiful things. So if you could architect your perfect, beautiful day from start to finish, what would it look like? And the caveat is there's no restrictions on the perfect, beautiful day. So if you need
Yeah.
to teleport to a couple of places, you can. If you're gluten intolerant, you don't have to be in the perfect, beautiful day. So what's your perfect, beautiful day if David Nasser gets to architect it?
Yeah, I just had one. I recently, in my backyard, both grandbabies,
Mm,
Jennifer Nasser doing her thing, her Jennifer Nasser thing, like she had the uh, the old quilt, that has been with
yeah,
us all 30 plus years of our marriage, has made it through every home, and it's just kind of tattered. She had that thing open. The grandbabies were sitting there. We just poured a cheap little pickleball court in the
mm.
backyard. It's not bougie. It's concrete and paint. so 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 the kids, my daughter and my son-in-law and my son and my daughter-in-law, they were playing pickleball while we were watching the grandbabies. One of the grandbabies got up, went to the back, got on the trampoline that we inherited when we bought the house. We're jumping up on the trampoline, and
Yeah,
I go turn the grill on. We throw some cheeseburgers on and hot dogs and gluten free because that's what the grandbabies want.
yeah,
And I'm just telling you, like, it doesn't get better to be around my family and to see my son laugh, as somebody
yeah.
hits a weird ball on the pickleball court, and to look at my wife, and she's I never thought she'd get prettier than
She
when we were
is
dating,
stunning.
and then she got prettier when we got married. And I never thought. And then she got prettier when she became a parent, and now, oh my gosh, now she's a grandmother, and and
Yeah,
just to see the smile that comes out of her when a grandbaby's like on her hip and she's walking,
yeah,
like I'd rather be in the backyard changing a diaper than any bougie house on Alledge Beach on 30A.
yeah, yeah,
But I'm just saying that to you. I mean it. Like, the perfect day is a day with the people that you love,
yeah,
you know, and just giggles with the grandbaby. So yeah,
yeah.
that was. It doesn't get prettier than that.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. I can actually see it. You're describing it and I can see it. That's amazing. I'm not a grandmother yet, but I have a feeling that will be a
You're gonna be
very, very
you're gonna be
good
a
era
cool
for me.
you're gonna be a cool grandma. Do you know?
Well,
Speaking of like
David, oh
beauty,
yeah,
do you know what song Jeffrey B. Scott sang at my wedding?
I don't.
Because as I was describing that day, I always think soundtrack in the back of my mind. The
Yeah.
song that came up was what we asked Jeff to sing. It's Cindy Morgan's "How Could I Ask for More,"
Oh,
and it's
it's so
about a
good.
beautiful day,
Yeah.
and yeah, that song just came to my mind as I was talking about just the other day those grandbabies
Yeah.
being there.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, thank you so much for doing the project, for doing this podcast, and just for your faithfulness
Yeah,
over the years to steward so faithfully what God's called you to. It really is impactful. It's impacted me for a long time, but I know so many others who may not get the chance to tell you that. So I want to tell you on their behalf. Just
yeah.
thank you.
Well, thank you, and thanks, to the whole entire team at Kava. I mean, they did an amazing job of hospitality and hosting Jen and I doing this video and shoot. And I'm so excited. I think this is a really special. I sensed God had His hand on it every day that we
Yeah.
were there, and as we
Yep.
were honoring Him, I sensed that, man, like we're seeing something special be cooked up here for people to really be able to come and partake and to grow in their faith. And my biggest takeaway, I gotta say before we get off, my biggest takeaway from Kaval was not that you are really talented in the way you do
Mm,
storytelling, or that you are highest level of quality in the way you do all of those things. That is already your reputation. My biggest takeaway was the warm spirit of your team and the way
mm,
that they were there, and how the one thing that seemed to matter the most in take after take after take after take was that we would honor God's word.
Yes.
Like if there was a pause, can we redo that again? It was, hey, let's rephrase that so that we're more clear on what happened. Instead of the sunlight wasn't right or the sound wasn't like those things mattered.
Right.
But what mattered the most to Kebab was we want to get this biblically right. And then when we present it to people that we know that we've honored God in his truth. And so thankful for you.
It's good. Well, it's going to be fun. And as David said, you don't want to miss Holy Week from Grief to Glory with QAVA. I'll put all the information in the show notes. I also want to say I'm going to put David's information in the show notes. You need to follow him on social media, go to his website. You need to buy his books. Can they still buy your books? Like,
Yeah.
I want to just shout out A Call to Die. That book I've had for 25, 27 years now, and it is still so good. So go get A Call to Die and anything else he's written. But you can find all of that information on his website. And David, thank you again. Please tell your stunning wife hello for us. So maybe we'll talk to her next. She's going to be a great interview too, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate you, David, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks again.
Thank you for joining us for Everything Made Beautiful. We're grateful for your willingness to tune in. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share today's episode. For more from Shannon, including articles, resources, and upcoming events, visit shannonsuzannescott.com. We'll see you next time.